So let's now put together the indifference curve analysis with the budget line we just saw. So essentially what we want to do is to get to the consumer to a point in which he or she is using all of his income and then maximizing his or her happiness. And we know that the consumer is going to do this when the consumer is actually reaching the highest indifference curve, the indifference curve are way farther away from the origin that the consumer can achieve. So therefore, we are definitely going to end up in a point in which the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. To see that, consider this, right? So we know from indifference curve that if the consumer has a choice between I1 and I2, the consumer will actually like to have I2 because at that indifference curve, the consumer is happier. Now, can the consumer afford both of them? Yes, the consumer can afford I1 because it crosses the budget line here, and the consumer can also afford I2 because it touches the budget line. So if the consumer has a choice between I1 and I2, the consumer would like to have I2. So essentially what you do here is to move the budget line farther away from the origin, all the way to you can with the prices, and you find out what is the tangent indifference curve that touches it. Now, for instance, consider I3. Now, a consumer would like to have I3, but unfortunately the consumer cannot afford I3 because the budget line doesn't reach that far. So therefore, if you apply this approach, you're definitely going to end up at a point in which the best for the consumer will be the tangent point between the indifference curve and the budget line. Now remember that at that point, we know the slopes of the curve. We know the slope of the budget line is always constant at the ratio of the prices, px over px over py. So that's the budget line, and the slope of the indifference curve is the marginal rate of substitution. They're both negative, so that's why I'm dropping the sign here. So what we're saying here is that the condition for maximizing happiness for a consumer is that the consumer has to consume at a point in which the slope of the budget line is the same as the slope of the indifference curve, or that the ratio of the prices is the same as the marginal rate of substitution. Now, this is by definition, so let's try to do a little example here so you can understand this, of what happens when the consumer is not maximizing happiness and why is it better to actually move into this direction for this equation.